ever wish you had more say in how things are done? Not just voting, but really shaping the decisions that affect your life,
Right.
your community.
Yeah.
Well, that's where citizen data comes in.
It is.
It's like giving everyone a voice, backed by real information.
Yeah.
And in this deep dive, we're going to explore this.
Okay.
It's called the Copenhagen Framework on Citizen Data.
Oh. Okay.
You can think of it as the rule book for making sure that this data is used responsibly.
I like that, the rule book.
So before we jump into the framework itself,
Okay.
let's get back to basics.
Oi.
What exactly are we talking about when we say citizen data?
Well, it's not just about citizens handing over information.
Okay.
It's about them being actively involved in the entire data journey.
Oh, okay.
From deciding what to collect to how it's used.
So it's not just about answering someone else's survey questions. It's about setting the agenda for the data collection.
Exactly. And this level of involvement is what makes citizen data so powerful. It ensures the data reflects the lived experiences and priorities of the people it represents.
Okay.
Especially those who might be traditionally excluded
Right.
or underrepresented.
So how does this Copenhagen framework actually work? Does it lay out specific steps or something?
Yeah, it does. It kind of breaks things down into 3 key characteristics.
Okay.
The first one focuses on the different levels of citizen participation.
Okay.
It recognizes that involvement isn't one size fits all.
So it's not just about checking a box that says, yeah, we talk to the community.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
The framework outlines different levels of engagement.
Okay.
From simply receiving information to actually leading the whole data show.
Oh, wow.
And it really pushes for moving beyond just token involvement towards true empowerment.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what's the second characteristic?
So the second one looks at where in the data life cycle citizens can jump in. Imagine a factory line where raw materials are transformed into a finished product.
Okay.
It's kind of like the data value chain.
So instead of a factory line, it's more like a data line.
You got it.
Okay.
And the Copenhagen Framework highlights how citizens can engage at different points along this data line.
Okay.
From designing how the data is collected to actually gathering the data.
Right.
To making sense of it all and even using it to shape decisions.
So there's a whole journey involved.
Okay.
Okay. And the third characteristic?
The third characteristic gets into who is actually driving the data collection.
Okay.
It could be entirely citizen-driven.
Right.
Like a neighborhood group tracking air quality.
Yeah. Okay.
Or it could be a collaboration between citizens and, say, a university or a government agency.
So like a community working with researchers to map out local resources.
Exactly.
Okay.
And understanding these different models helps us understand the strengths and weaknesses of each approach.
Right.
You know, is the data reliable? Are there potential biases?
That's really helpful for anyone looking to use this data, right?
Yeah.
Knowing how it was collected and who was involved makes a big difference.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And the framework doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It also looks at what distinguishes different citizen data initiatives from each other.
So even though they all involve citizens, there are still different flavors
Precisely.
of citizen data.
And one of the key distinctions is the why behind the data.
Okay.
The objectives.
Right.
Why are people collecting this data in the first place?
Yeah.
What are they hoping to achieve?
So it's not just about gathering data for the sake of gathering data.
Right.
There's a purpose behind it.
There is.
Okay.
And the framework lays out a whole list of objectives. One that really stands out is addressing the data needs of groups who don't feel represented by existing data.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Think about it. Official statistics don't always capture the realities of marginalized communities.
Right.
Citizen data can help fill those gaps and give a voice to those who are often overlooked.
It's about making sure everyone's story is told.
Yeah.
Not just the stories that are easiest to collect or that fit into neat little boxes.
So how does the framework help us make sense of all these different types of citizen data?
Right.
Objectives and levels of participation.
It provides a handy taxonomy.
Okay.
Think of it as a sorting tool.
Okay.
It helps categorize different initiatives as either citizen data or not citizen data.
Right.
Based on key factors, like who's leading the project and how involved citizens are.
So if a community group partners with a university to collect data on, let's say, noise pollution levels, that would likely be classified as citizen data.
Most likely, yeah.
But if a government agency collects data without any citizen involvement at all, that wouldn't fit the definition.
Exactly.
Okay, so this taxonomy helps draw clear lines. And clarifies what we're really talking about.
It does.
When we say citizen data, okay, so we've got these 3 defining characteristics.
Okay.
And a handy sorting tool to categorize different initiatives.
Yep.
But is it just a free-for-all once you've got a citizen data project going?
No.
Are there guidelines?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's where the framework's principles come in.
Okay.
They're essential for making sure this data is collected and used responsibly and ethically.
So it's not just about collecting data.
No.
It's about doing it the right way.
Exactly.
Let's dive into some of these principles.
Okay.
What are a few that really stand out?
Well, one of the most crucial is independence.
Okay.
Citizen data collection should be free from any outside pressure.
Okay.
Especially from political agendas.
Right.
It needs to be driven by the genuine needs and interests of the people it aims to represent.
Otherwise, it risks becoming a tool for manipulation rather than empowerment.
Exactly. Right. And that ties directly into another key principle, relevance.
Okay.
The data collected should directly address the issues that matter to the citizens involved. So if a community is worried about traffic safety, their data efforts should focus on that, not on something less relevant to their needs.
So it's about making sure the data has a purpose, a real-world connection to the community's concerns.
Exactly.
What else?
Well, we can't forget about participation and informed consent.
Right.
This is huge for ethical data practices.
It seems obvious.
It does.
But sometimes the obvious needs to be said.
You're right.
Yeah.
The framework stresses that all groups, especially those who are marginalized or vulnerable, should be actively involved in the process.
Okay.
And they should fully understand how their data will be collected, used, and protected.
Transparency builds trust, right?
It does.
People need to know what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
And feel confident that their data is being handled responsibly.
Absolutely. And along with transparency, there's the issue of professional standards.
Okay.
Just because it's citizen data doesn't mean it gets a free pass on quality.
Right.
Data collection and analysis should adhere to professional and methodological standards.
Okay.
Ensuring the data is reliable and usable for its intended purpose.
So it's a balancing act.
It is.
Citizen-driven, yet still adhering to high standards.
Exactly.
What about the ethical side of things? Are there principles that address that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The framework talks about the ethical and safe production and use of data.
Okay.
It emphasizes that citizen data should never be used to harm or discriminate against individuals or groups.
That seems like a given, but unfortunately, data can be misused.
It can.
It's good to have that ethical safeguard explicitly stated.
Exactly. And recognizing those potential risks is key to creating an enabling environment for citizen data to thrive.
So we've got this great framework.
Yeah.
But it can't just exist on paper, right? It needs the right conditions to actually flourish.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
That's what we'll be diving into in the next part of this deep dive.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork with the Copenhagen Framework. But I'm curious, what are some real-world examples of citizen data making a difference?
That's where it gets exciting.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful things about citizen data is its ability to shine a light on issues that traditional data sources might miss.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to understanding the experiences of marginalized or underrepresented groups.
So it's about filling in those gaps where official statistics might fall short.
Exactly. Let's say you're trying to understand the impact of a new transportation policy in a city.
Right.
Citizen data could help you gather incredibly specific insights.
Okay.
How is this policy affecting people with disabilities, senior citizens, low-income families who rely on public transportation?
That level of detail could be really valuable for policymakers.
Absolutely.
Right, seeing the real-world impacts on different groups.
It helps move beyond broad-stroke assumptions to a much richer understanding of how policies play out in people's lives.
Okay, so that's one benefit.
Yeah.
What else makes citizen data so valuable?
Another key benefit is the power it gives to individuals and communities.
Okay.
It's not just about being surveyed or studied.
Right.
It's about taking ownership of the data itself and using it to advocate for change.
So it's like flipping the script.
Yeah.
Instead of being passive subjects, citizens become active participants in shaping their communities.
Exactly. Imagine a neighborhood concerned about a lack of green space. They could use citizen data photos, surveys, even maps they create themselves.
Wow.
To document the need for a park
Why?
And present that evidence to city officials.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
It's about turning lived experiences into data
Right.
that can be used to drive action.
And this focus on action often leads to increased transparency and accountability.
Okay.
When citizens are involved in collecting and analyzing data, it can bring issues to light that might have otherwise gone unnoticed.
I'm thinking about things like environmental monitoring.
Yeah.
Could citizen data play a role there?
Absolutely. Imagine a community living near a factory concerned about pollution.
Right.
They could use citizen data, air quality readings, photos, even personal testimonies to document the problem and push for stricter environmental regulations.
So it's not just about collecting data for data's sake.
Right.
It's about using it to hold powerful entities accountable.
Right. And this increased transparency can also lead to improvements in how services are delivered, particularly in areas like healthcare, education, and social services.
Can you give an example of how that might work?
Sure. Imagine a community using citizen data to track wait times at a local health clinic, or to identify areas where access to healthcare is limited. That data could be incredibly valuable for helping clinics improve their services and allocate resources more effectively.
So it's about using data to make those services truly responsive to the needs of the community.
Exactly. Citizen data can be a powerful tool for improving people's lives. But it's important to be realistic. There are also challenges involved.
That makes sense. It's not a magic bullet.
No.
What are some of the hurdles that citizen data projects might encounter?
One of the most common concerns is data quality. Citizen-collected data can sometimes be inconsistent or inaccurate, especially if the people collecting it aren't trained in data collection methods.
That's understandable. You can't expect everyone to be a statistician.
Or a data scientist.
Exactly. But this is where those principles from the Copenhagen Framework come in. Things like professional standards, quality assurance, and ethical data collection. They help address these concerns and ensure the data is reliable.
So it's about finding that balance.
It is.
Maintaining rigor without stifling the energy and creativity of citizen-led initiatives. What other challenges are there?
Another big one is making sure citizen data initiatives are truly inclusive and representative of the communities they aim to serve.
That's so important.
It is.
It would be counterproductive to try and address inequality with data. That's itself biased or incomplete.
Exactly. It's easy to fall into the trap of only engaging with those who are already digitally connected or who have the time and resources to participate.
So, for example, a project that relies solely on a smartphone app might exclude people who don't have smartphones.
Which could skew the data.
You got it. So it's crucial to be really intentional about reaching out to diverse communities and finding ways to make participation accessible to everyone.
That might mean using a variety of data collection methods.
It might.
Not just relying on technology.
It could involve things like in-person surveys, community meetings, even working with local organizations that already have strong connections to the community.
What about data privacy? That seems like a big consideration.
It is.
Especially when dealing with sensitive personal information.
It's absolutely crucial. Citizens need to feel confident that their data will be protected from misuse or unauthorized access.
And the Copenhagen Framework addresses that, right?
It does. It emphasizes the importance of things like informed consent, data confidentiality, and ethical data use. But it's also important to have clear legal frameworks in place that protect individual privacy rights.
So it's a combination of ethical guidelines and strong legal protections.
Exactly. And another challenge is securing sustainable funding and resources for these initiatives.
Passion and volunteer efforts are amazing.
They are.
But sometimes you need more than that.
You do.
To create real impact.
It's hard to keep the momentum going without dedicated resources.
Things like staff time, training materials, maybe even software or equipment?
And that's where partnerships can be really valuable. Connecting with universities, research organizations, or even government agencies can open up opportunities for funding, expertise, and support.
So it's about creating a network of support. Recognizing that citizen data initiatives don't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly. They need to be part of a larger ecosystem. And that brings us to another challenge.
Okay.
How do we integrate citizen data
Okay.
with other data sources, including official statistics?
Because it shouldn't just live in its own little silo, right?
Right.
It needs to be part of a bigger conversation.
Exactly, to maximize the impact of citizen data.
Okay.
We need to find ways to connect it with other data sets,
Right.
allowing for a more comprehensive understanding
Okay.
of complex issues.
That sounds tricky.
It can be.
How do you even start to bring all those different data sources together?
It requires addressing issues of data compatibility,
Right.
standardization, and interoperability.
Okay.
Making sure the data can talk to each other.
So it's like translating between different languages.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Making sure the data is formatted
Right.
in a way that makes sense
Yeah.
across different platforms and systems.
That's a great way to think about it.
Okay.
It also requires building trust and collaboration
Right.
between different data producers, from government agencies to academic researchers to, of course, citizen groups.
Because ultimately, it's about creating a richer,
It is.
more nuanced picture of the world.
Yeah.
One that includes both the big picture and the lived experiences of individuals and communities.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that leads us to the big question.
Okay.
What can we as individuals actually do to support the responsible and ethical development of citizen data?
Okay.
That's what we'll explore in the next part of this deep dive.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. The principles of the Copenhagen Framework, the real-world benefits, and the challenges of citizen data.
Yeah.
But now I'm really curious,
Okay.
what can we as individuals actually do to support this movement?
That's a great question.
It all sounds exciting,
Yeah.
but also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where do we even start?
So the most important thing is to remember that there are many different ways to contribute, no matter your skills or experience.
So it's not just for tech wizards
Nope.
or data scientists.
Right. Absolutely not, if you're ready to jump right in.
Okay.
One of the most direct ways to get involved is to participate in a citizen data initiative in your own community.
Are there specific places to look for these initiatives?
There are tons of projects out there.
Okay.
Think about the issues you're most passionate about.
Okay.
Are there local organizations working to address those issues?
Right.
Chances are some of them are already using citizen data.
Okay.
Or could benefit from it.
Okay.
You can volunteer your time, share your skills,
Right.
or even just contribute your observations.
So if I'm concerned about, say, traffic safety in my neighborhood,
Right.
I could look for a group that's already tracking accidents or near misses.
Exactly.
Or maybe working to improve pedestrian walkways.
Exactly. And if you can't find an existing project
Right.
that aligns with your interests, remember, you can always start your own.
Really? I could just start collecting data myself.
Absolutely. The Copenhagen Framework provides guidelines for designing and implementing responsible citizen data initiatives.
Right.
And remember, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
Citizen data collection can take many forms.
Right.
From simple surveys to using smartphone apps to just taking notes and photos.
Wow, that's empowering.
It is.
But let's be honest, not everyone has the time
Right.
or capacity to become a citizen data collector.
Right.
Are there other ways to support this movement,
Yeah.
even if we can't be on the front lines collecting data ourselves?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful things you can do
Okay.
is advocate for policies that support citizen data,
Okay.
both locally and nationally.
So it's about raising awareness among policymakers
Right.
and pushing for legislation that recognizes the value of citizen data.
Exactly. You can contact your elected officials,
Right.
write letters to the editor, or even organize community events to raise awareness about the importance of citizen data.
So it's about creating a demand for this type of data and ensuring it's integrated into decision-making processes.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's one way to make a difference.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Another important way to contribute is to support organizations working to promote citizen data
Okay.
and build capacity for data collection and analysis.
Okay.
There are some incredible organizations out there doing this work.
Right.
You can donate to their cause,
Right.
volunteer your skills,
Okay.
or simply spread the word about their work.
Are there any specific organizations
Absolutely.
you recommend looking into?
Organizations like the GovLab and the Citizen Science Association,
Okay.
they're doing amazing work to empower communities
Right.
and advance the field of citizen data.
I'll definitely check them out.
Yeah.
So we've talked about collecting data,
Okay.
advocating for policies, and supporting organizations.
Right.
What else can we do as individuals?
Well, it's also crucial to be a critical consumer of citizen data.
Okay.
Just because data is labeled as citizen data It doesn't automatically mean it's accurate or unbiased.
That makes sense. We need to be discerning, just like with any other type of information.
Exactly. Look for transparency in how the data was collected, analyzed, and presented.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions about the methodology or to dig deeper into the data to understand its nuances.
So it's about being informed and engaged.
Exactly.
Not just passively accepting whatever we see.
And finally, one of the simplest but most effective things you can do is spread the word about citizen data.
So tell our friends and family about what we've learned in this deep dive.
Exactly. Share inspiring stories about citizen data projects that are making a difference. Talk about the potential of citizen data to empower communities and drive positive change. The more people understand the power of this movement, the stronger it will become.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface. But I already have a much better understanding of what citizen data is, why it matters, and how we can all play a role in shaping its future.
It's been a pleasure diving into this topic with you.
Likewise.
Citizen data is a powerful tool for creating a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. And it all starts with individuals like you and me taking action.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
If you're feeling inspired, we encourage you to explore the resources mentioned in this episode and get involved in a citizen data initiative near you.
Great idea.
Remember, every contribution counts.
It does.